Did it. Finally have myself a Christmas snip. That doesn't sound right, does it? Let me set the scene for you first and foremost. I got this on the day of release. I bought this game. I bought the PS4 version, which upgrades automatically to PS5 next year. Downloaded the game straight away. 62 gigs is how big that game was. However, patch straight away took it to, I think, 102 gigs. Massive. 100 gigs. Anything 100 gigs is massive, particularly when your system right now, the PS5, has such a limited capacity to store anything anyway. It kind of takes up at least a fifth of your internal memory on a PlayStation 5. So the game is absolutely huge. So originally you think, okay, this thing's going to be a beast. It's an absolute monster of a game. It's huge. Now, CD Projekt Red came out and were very open about the fact that there was going to be some work done to this thing. It was a little bit buggy. It had a lot of little problems here and there. I was kind of annoyed that the game was given to a lot of people, influencers, the day before it actually came out. It was like my Twitch, my YouTube was suddenly flooded when the embargo was lifted with Cyberpunk related videos. So immediately, it's not really a global release. It's not at midnight, come December 10th. It's actually a day before when you can get your fair share and basically watch anything you want. And I didn't like that. I kind of, I understand how they want this game to do well, across the board, be it with reviewers, with, different media outlets, with creators. But to be honest, when a game of this magnitude that we all know is going to be an absolute behemoth of a title, people are going to buy this game. People are going to play this game. Why give it to people the day before? Or at least can release things the day before? I don't understand why that's necessary, but it was a thing that kind of annoyed me. Initial first thoughts. First and foremost, it feels like a game that I've never experienced before in my life. It feels very different to anything else that I recall playing. The reason being, it comes down to the depth, okay? Very early on, people coming out and saying the length of the game isn't, it's not particularly long compared to other kind of CD Projekt Red titles like The Witcher 3. It's a lot shorter. It's got 3 different factions that you can start the game as. Either it's Nomad, I think it's Night Kid, and it's Corpo. Now, I chose Corpo. I won't go in very much into the details of the story because it is so deep and there is so much to it. But ultimately, you get knocked down to you're at the grassroots again, and you got to try and get your way back into, some form of power. The missions get more and more elaborate. There are targets, there are hits out, there are kind of there's you trying to, warden off certain elite police officers, pay off the police, work with it. There is so much to this world. It's got very much a, if you think of scale, GTA 5 is really the biggest comparison. You also have, and I'm not spoiling anything here, other characters that you may or may not have seen at E3 who are also in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. There are different people that you can have come into contact with or can absorb in some ways that you can experience the game differently. So when we say depth, I'm not talking about how the depth of like the environment around you, which is incredibly detailed, and the color palette, particularly on some kind of ray tracing versions you see on PC, or even on console, the PS5. The color palette is sensational, and the filmic kind of vibe. You're kind of getting elements of like Blade Runner, and you're getting elements of Equilibrium and The Matrix, and all these kind of futuristic kind of vibes run through it, and it's really spectacular in that respect. But the depth I'm talking about is I'm going to focus on the mission depth. Now, when you could play a conventional game, you have a mission that's in front of you. You've got certain people to talk to, certain things to do. Tick, 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 job done. With the missions I've experienced so far in the main campaign story, the layers to a mission are so extraordinary. The fact that you have like a particular, let's say for instance, you've got a particular mission where you are hiding somewhere, you're observing a conversation. That conversation, depending on the RPG elements you choose, has, certain kind of character, transitions and engagement and things. However, there's a finite way that the thing progresses. But it has so many different elements to it, in the sense that for 1 minute you could be kind of in a room and it's really quiet. The next minute you're out on a rooftop, kind of like trying to brave the rain and storms and trying to kind of survive the height that you're at. And then suddenly you're plunged into, taking control of like some kind of like AI robot, which is going through drains. There is so, like, it feels so vast. every mission I kind of play, think it's not like a quick, like, oh, I'll play this in 5 minutes. A mission can last a long time. I think there was one mission I did. It was called The Heist, which took like over an hour. There were so many parts to it. Like, going into hotels and kind of interacting with like robotic concierge. There were so many elements to it. And I don't remember a game having the scale of Cyberpunk. I really don't. It feels so deep, and there's so much bang for your buck for every single thing that you do in this game. I've played a lot of games in my life. It really, really, really struck me at how deep it goes. And despite the fact that the length may not be, the storyline may not be quite as vast as people are hoping, or quite as long as you're hoping, man, there's a lot of things to do. You look at the map, the first time you really get into the map, which takes a while, FYI, the prologue alone takes freaking ages. Like the act two, like the game, the opening of the game takes so long to get through the whole kind of opening. I'm not saying that the first mission takes, but like the getting to like when the map opens up, in a traditional RPG, when the map opens up is when the game really begins, because that's when you, a role-playing game, get to dictate how you want to play the game and where you want to go. It takes a while to get there. The first kind of real chunk of the game is very linear. You can't really kind of go off the beaten track. It's very much like, this is the way you do things. You follow it through and you just experience it. So when you get to the map, you'll see so many kind of like things to collect, things to see, people to find, hits to take out, people to kind of like, liaise with. There's a lot to it. It is a little bit overly complicated at times. Like if you've played games like BioShock, when you kind of like, you have an environment and you kind of interact with like trash cans and you find junk and things, you find bits and things around the map. There's tons and tons of collectibles in the game. Tons of things you can find, you can take, and be it weaponry, be it like kind of like new armor, be it kind of there's tons of things that you can find. But at first, there is so much on screen, what you're picking up and where it goes into the main menu and your inventory. There are so many things that you need to get your head around how the game wants you to level up, scale up, rank up, work on your skill trees. It feels familiar, but it also feels very different. Now, whether or not the developers have said, we want to make this kind of feel like it's not just a standard skill tree, that there's so much more to it. Like there's tons of different skill trees. You have everything from cool to intelligence to body to technical ability. And each of those different criteria you level up, each of them got like at least 2 or 3 mini skill trees within those different abilities. Like it gets quite detailed, and dictate, obviously in this day and age as well, the way you want to play a game is incredibly important. The way you want to play a game, how you choose, you, the player, is what developers want the most. Choice. That is how you make a game your own. It's not the same for everybody. It's always different. And that goes for the character customization as well. So detailed, so many options. Don't understand why they felt the need to add genitalia in there. Felt a little bit needless. I think just more for a laugh or whatever it might be, because I don't know how that's going to affect the game at all. Maybe there's a mission down the line. I don't know what the heck, where it could go. What rating is this game? I don't know what could happen, but it just feels like there are some things that don't seem to be that necessary. There are some things that really feel like, wow, that's a really specific way of changing that attribute of my face or my body. That's kind of cool. And then you could unlock things along the way as well, which is great. But I think for me, the customization of the actual outfits, like the armor, if you will, the way that you look, the way that you feel, you'll get some stuff along the way as part of the storyline, but also finding things. And I've been rocking some insane outfits. Like my guy, who I tried to be as close as I could to myself. On my Twitter, I have like a picture of it. It wasn't my fault I turned out like David Beckham. It just happened, all right? I didn't mean that to happen, but it happened, all right? And I'm kind of happy with it. So just shut up, all right? There's been lots and lots of talk about the bugginess of the game, how it tends to crash randomly for no reason, how there's moments where you see a lot of glitchy kind of NPC characters or the environment suddenly starts to blur or I've had my fair share. Not loads, but a little bit here and there. I'm playing, as I said, on a PS5. I'm playing like a console version. And I've had a few sudden crashes for no particular reason. It's just crashed. But it's really easy to get back into the game where you left off, and it usually takes you back only like a few seconds or a minute or so to where you last left off. So it's not a problem. I think it's been far more common with PC versions of the game, but it makes you wonder if they've pushed back the game 3 or 4 times at the course of the year to the state that it's in currently. And there's a recent patch, I think it's 1.04, the recent patch or update, which has definitely helped massively. If they pushed it back from the original kind of release date of like June time, maybe it was, or kind of the summer, what was it like then? this is what we're getting now. And I think even now they're kind of trying to rush it out before Christmas. So the developers must have been working their nuts off to get this into a position where they could actually release this thing and it'd be kind of in a good enough place that it was playable to the extent that it is. So the bugginess is annoying. People have been kind of commenting loads on Twitter and comments online about how this isn't kind of fully finished. It is a complex game with a lot of strings to it. You know, there inevitably are going to be things that need changing all the time. And particularly, when you go from like a beta all the way to kind of full release, inevitably when there's tons of people playing this game, tons of people around the world on different systems playing it, things are going to crop up that they didn't see in the alpha or beta versions. So this is a thing. It's worth getting past. It's frustrating. It annoys me sometimes. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm in the middle of something. Combat is good, really good. The shooting element, using weaponry in the game, There's a kind of a part at the beginning of the game where you get a chance to do some kind of tactical training with using stealth work. Because you can go about it different ways of the game as well. You can be a lot more stealthy. You can go at it, doing it kind of running, gunning. However you want to play the game, it's up to you. Again, choice. The actual aiming with weaponry in the game, you can't rely on aim assist at all, I would say. I think aim assist in this game, and not the fact I want aim assist, because there's games like GTA 5, as I mentioned, that, it's really easy to press like a trigger and it automatically locks in and you just press the shoot button and that's it, job done. This game, Cyberpunk, does not want you to play like that. It wants you to be accurate. It wants you to feel like you're really in that moment. You're really having to be very precise about the way you kind of, take on a certain kind of like enemy or whatever it might be, or mission. Don't go into this thinking that it's going to be an easy jobby, because it's not. And I find that there's been some kind of enemies and some moments where I've really had to kind of like, work on the complexity of the weaponry and how I upgrade things, add certain things to weaponry. For me, there's been a couple of like great attributes. Like there's one that automatically, every time you pick up any junk, it automatically turns into cash. That is a great perk. Like that is a hugely helpful perk in this game. Throwing knives in this game, really OP. Throwing knives are great as well. Definitely something to look out for. One of the really early attributes you can get as well. So there's a few different attributes that really are going to make your gaming experience a lot easier. One thing that is, I think, not particularly rewarding or worth my time in the game is the driving element. It doesn't feel great. Obviously, games like Witcher 3 and such that we mentioned, the Witcher titles and such, you're on horseback, it feels fantastic, wind blowing in your hair, amazing. The driving in this game hasn't really worked for me. It's felt very redundant. I feel like I'm kind of, there's different kind of, three different kind of perspectives. You can have obviously in the car, like first person. You can have third person quite far away or a little bit closer. It doesn't feel good compared to so many other games these days where the driving is amazing. I don't feel that the driving element in this is that great. You can call your car really easily and it pulls up and you're fine, you're good to go. But I haven't been using it that much. I've actually been kind of running everywhere. It's quite easy to get around. Doesn't feel worth it driving anywhere. Just leg it instead. They've added a few really cool new methods around the hacking or code breaking area. Games like Watch Dogs Legion came out recently are hacking cameras. That's really, that's kind of like part and parcel of kind of like that genre. In this game, you do a lot of hacking. However, there's code breaking, which is kind of cool. There's where you can hack different cameras and look around. That's fine as well. You can you can choose different ways that you want to interact with certain things that ping up on the map, like, be it like TV screens or robots or turrets, whatever it might be, that you can choose the way that you want to interact with that thing, whether you want it to distract an enemy or kind of fire on an enemy or blow up near an enemy. You can do those different kind of things. Obviously, the more leveled up your character is, the more opportunity you're going to have to do different things with that stuff. But sometimes it feels a little bit too complicated again. Sometimes I feel like I'm going into something, how am I doing this? This is kind of makes sense, but it doesn't. There are unique ways around certain puzzles. And although you can kind of find your way and fumble your way through, they're not very clear sometimes. And that could be said for the storyline as well. I mean, the campaign is so far has been exciting, full of drama. I've been kind of on the edge of my seat. You feel like you've been kind of thrown into a situation that you understand the gist of where you are, what's going on around you, more or less. But times that I find myself completely clueless as to a situation. I'm glued to it going, yep, cool, yep, thinking, sorry, what? Whether it's just me being stupid, I don't know. I think the game is a bit highbrow sometimes and trying to be overly complex and futuristic because, in the future, everyone's really savvy with all this kind of technical jargon. But for me, sometimes it's a bit crazy. One thing that I must add as well, which I think is a super cool nod to the likes of Minority Report, is the Ripper Doc element. Now, as well as leveling up weaponry and leveling up different kind of armor and such as well, and the way that you look and that kind of thing, there is an opportunity as well to go to Ripper Docs and have implants, like body implants. Again, so much depth to the way that you can level up your character and choose a character for you. Everyone's experience is different. Ripper Docs are ultimately kind of like, if you think about Minority Report and Tom Cruise has to have his eyes replaced by that kind of crazy back alley doctor, different parts of your body can be upgraded and enhanced to be even better in certain situations. I like that too. Again, it adds another layer to it. Many people have said to me over the course of the last kind of couple of weeks, I'm going to wait until next year when the next gen version comes out. I'm going to wait. And I understand why people want to do that. Let the game breathe, let the game get to the level where you can play the PS5 version or whatever it might be that you want, where it's properly fixed, bug-free, and ready to roll. I understand that. And the great thing about the game as well is it doesn't matter when you tune in to anybody's game, be you watching on stream, watching something on YouTube. Whenever you dive into that game, anything can happen. It might be the same mission, but the character is completely different. The way that you go about your kind of like your responses, because you can always respond in different ways in the RPG. It reminds me of like Mass Effect. The fact that you've got a lot of different options. Obviously, there's the one that's always highlighted in yellow, which is the main let's drive the story forward option. But there's tons of exposition and context by kind of like just figuring out about characters and their backstory by choosing the other options first and looking at those. There's also ways that, depending on your kind of skills or attributes, you can kind of wangle a conversation in a different way and kind of like focus it in a different direction. The same thing goes that you can use key attributes of your particular chosen class, be it Corpo in my instance, or Nomad or Night Kid, where you'll sometimes have options that are specific to that character. And if you're a trophy hunter, you're an achievement hunter out there, try choosing some of those options. You'll see the verdict. It is an incredible game. It's a brilliant game. I do have gripes. The over complexity of some things. Maybe that's the way games are going now. Maybe games are going in that direction. I have to get with the times, get with the program. Perhaps that's the case. There's so much going on the screen at times, be it kind of like the dialogue, be it the kind of the weaponry or different attributes, different kind of like, missions. There is so much sometimes going on that it is a little bit too much. Maybe people want that. Maybe people want more on the screen, more things going on. That's absolutely fine. For me personally, I think it's a bit too much. And I'd love your thoughts as well. If you've played the game, and I want to know what you think in the comments below, whether you think that this game has got too much of something, not enough of something. I'd really love to know your thoughts so far as well. I haven't seen many people say, oh, I'm really devastated I played this game. It's nowhere near as good, because the hype was massive. And when the hype is this big around a game, there is a certain level of expectation. Look what happened with The Last of Us Part 2. There are so many haters out there who didn't like the way the story progressed. They didn't like the way they went forward. They blame the direction. They blame the publishers for it. I happen to have loved that game. I thought it was a great game. We all have gripes with certain things. I loved that game. I played it all the way through and really enjoyed it. Cyberpunk, I'm going to play it the entire way through. There's no doubt about that. It feels huge. The visuals, man, like the skyline, the buildings, the vehicles, the people, the dress code of some of the characters, the way that you go into a nightclub and it feels alive. It feels like even if you weren't there, the conversations are going on. Things are happening. Bottles are being smashed. People are drinking at the bar. It feels so immersive. I recommend you play, but I really don't think there's a necessity to play it immediately. It's a year where we've all been kind of hit so hard financially by what's happened with the pandemic. And there's this pressure sometimes when games of this ilk come out that you have to play them. You have to get it straight away because everyone's doing it, so you must. I don't think that you need to rush out and get it, because whenever you play this, be it now, be it in a year from now, be it 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, it'll still feel fresh because there's so many ways that you can make it your game that make it different to others. And that's why I like this game, because of the choice element, because it has a create your own adventure feel to it, one that you are fully in control of. Yes, it has its linear moments, but I like the fact that it's my game. I play it how I want to play it. And that's what I think the future of gaming is, making it more about you. Forget how customizable your skin is. It's how you customize the story for you and tailor it to what you want. That's what I like about it. I've just figured that out. Well done, me. Well done. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'd love to know what you thought of the game. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Tons of videos on here now. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Peace out. I'll see you in the next one.